Hi everyone, I'm Hextasy, and I've been pretty sick over the last few days, so sorry if my voice sounds a little weird. But today, we're going to be seeing how high we can climb in ranked doubles before the end of Season 13. I've put together two teams we'll be trying today. The first is a Sandstorm team using Tyranitar, Arcanine, Sandslash, Sandushocks, Iron Moth, and Noivern. So let's get into it and see how it goes. It did not go well. So let's move on to the second team. This one revolves around sunny weather using Torkoal, Screamtail, Roaring Moon, Fluttermane, Ninetales, and Leafeon. So hopefully this team does better. Yeah, it did not do better. We're just gonna pretend this never happened and prepare a new team for Season 14. A couple days later, and with the new season comes a new team. This time it's a rain team, featuring Ogerpon, Gyarados, Urshifu, Latios, Archaludon, and Volbeat. Yeah, I know, all these heavy hitters and then just Volbeat. I swear there's a method to my madness. For our first fight, we'll be bringing out Volbeat, Latios, Archaludon, and Urshifu. And our opponent starts with Whimsicott and Snorlax. Volbeat's Prankster ability lets it move first and sets up Rain Dance for later, and Latios hits Snorlax with an Aura Sphere, not even taking out half of its HP. Snorlax then hits Volbeat with a Zen Headbutt, but our little bug does not care for the obese spare and shrugs off the hit like it was nothing, and Whimsicott closes out the turn with a Trick Room. We decide to hit Whimsicott with an Encore on the following turn, so it's forced into using Trick Room over and over again, but it gets swapped out for Luxray and the move fails. Snorlax, seeing how little damage it dealt to Volbeat, then set up a Belly Drum, maxing out its attack at the price of half of its HP. But another Aura Sphere finishes it off, and Luxray gets burned by the Flame Orb it's holding. Toucannon comes in next, and Luxray outspeeds Latios and takes him out with a single crunch. Volbeat hits Luxray back with a Play Rough, but it doesn't do much, and Toucannon lands a Rock Blast, hitting 4 times and leaving us with just 7 HP. We bring Urshifu in next, and we plan on hitting Luxray with an Encore, so it has to hit Urshifu with the not very effective Crunch. But we're still weak to Toucannon's flying type moves, so we Terrastalize into a pure water type to avoid that. Seconds after making this play, I realize how flawed my logic is, but Luxray ends up chowing down on Volbeat, and we go relatively unpunished. Toucannon hits us with a Seed Bomb, wiping away more than half of our HP, but we can then land a Surging Strikes against Toucannon for the KO. We bring in our final Pokemon, Archaludon, and they bring Whimsicott back in. We have Urshifu use Detect as Whimsicott doubles their team's speed with a Tailwind. Archaludon then uses Electro Shot against Luxray, raising its special attack before leaving Luxray pretty close to going down. Luxray goes for a Crunch, but gets rejected and the Trick Room ends this turn, so their faster team will be moving first now. Whimsicott takes out Urshifu with an Energy Ball, and Luxray hits Archaludon with a Crunch, dealing a solid amount of damage, but a second Electro Shot takes it out. Whimsicott's Energy Balls hardly do any damage to Archaludon, and we're able to take it out with a Flash Cannon, winning us the first fight. For the second fight, we'll start with Volbeat and Gyarados, with Urshifu and Archaludon in the back, and our opponent brings in Dragonite and Cacturne. Volbeat sets up the rain before Dragonite hits Gyarados with a Thunder Wave, paralyzing it, and Cacturne sets up a substitute. We try to land our own Thunder Wave on Dragonite, but we end up missing. Volbeat sets up Tailwind next, and Dragonite hits Gyarados with a Wrap before we actually land our Thunder Wave this time. and Cacturn uses Ingrain. They can't call it back now, but it's being constantly healed. I'm starting to see that this match is going to be very stall heavy, and Cacturn soon reveals that its other two moves are Block and Leech Seed, which gives me an idea. We pile as much damage as we can onto Dragonite before Gyarados goes down, and we bring in our Calodon, who outspeeds and finishes it with a Draco Meteor. We're hit by a Leech Seed, and they bring in Ogerpon next. So we swap our Calodon out for Urshifu as they terrastalize Ogerpon. Volbeat is able to get a Rain Dance off, so Urshifu isn't taken out by an Ivy Cudgel, and we can take out Ogerpon with the Surging Strikes on the next turn. Their final Pokemon is Dragapult, and the Surging Strikes isn't enough to take it out, so it takes out Volbeat with a Phantom Force, and Urshifu falls to its own Life Orb. Our Calodon is all I have left, and we immediately terrastalize it into a Grass type, making it immune to Cacturn's Leech Seed, meaning it has no way of damaging us. We take out Dragapult with an Electro Shot, and after breaking Cacturn's Substitute, a Draco Meteor finishes it off, winning us the second fight. For the third fight, we bring in Volbeat, our Calodon, Latios, and Ogerpon, while our opponent starts with Meowscarada and Arcanine. Volbeat sets up the rain, and Meowscarada has the Potion ability, so it becomes a fighting type when it uses Brick Break on our Calodon, and it ends up getting a critical hit for the one-hit KO. Arcanine then hits Volbeat with a Will-O-Wisp, and we bring in Latios. We go for the kill on the cat this turn, but they swap Meowscarada out for my Milotic. Volbeat sets up a Tailwind, and Latios lands a Luster Purge, wiping away half of Milotic's HP, but Arcanine then uses Snarl, not doing a lot of damage, but it does lower our special attack, so we can't repeat Luster Purge for the KO. We swap Latios out for Ogerpon as Arcanine uses Snarl again, and Milotic uses Recover, restoring most of the damage we've dealt to it. But now we can have Volbeat hit Pinhead Larry with an Encore, forcing it into spamming Recover, so it's completely useless on the field for a couple turns now. And Ogerpon can take out Arcanine with an Ivy Cudgel. Meowscarada comes in next, and we try to hit it with a combination of Low Sweep and Play Rough, but it's just barely not enough to get the KO, and a Flower Trick takes out Ogerpon. We bring Latios back in, and he's holding the choice specs, so whichever move we choose to use, we're stuck with for the remainder of the match. They still have either a Lapras, Walking Wake, or Clodsire we haven't seen yet, and I decide to gamble on them bringing in one of the two water types, and we lock ourselves into using Thunder. Meowscarada is swapped out, and in comes Clodsire. Well, we can wipe out their other two Pokemon, but now we have no way to deal with Clodsire. So Latios eventually goes down, and that makes for our first loss of the season. Moving on to the fourth fight, we're going to bring in Volbeat, Latios, Ogerpon, and Calodon, while the opposing team starts with Goldengo and Amoonguss. Amoonguss starts by using Rage Powder, forcing us to target it as Volbeat sets up the rain for us. But with my 5 billion IQ, I knew Amoonguss would be redirecting our attack, so we went for a Luster Purge, which gets the one-hit KO, and Goldengo uses Nasty Plot, doubling its special attack. Qianpao is in next, and knowing its Sucker Punch could probably take out Latios, we swap out for Ogerpon. But Qianpao is just using Protect this turn. We try to hit Goldengo with an Encore, completely forgetting that its ability stops those kinds of moves, and it hits Ogerpon with a Shadow Ball for the one-hit KO. If we can't Encore Goldengo, then we'll just Encore Qianpao into Spam and Protect. Except it doesn't work here either, and I didn't realize why until a few games later when I make the same mistake. Qianpao hits Volbeat with an Ice Spinner, taking out more than half of its HP, and Goldengo takes our Caledon out with a single Shadow Ball. Things are looking pretty dire here when Latios comes back in. We Terrasilize into an Electric type, hoping that gives us a chance at surviving a Sucker Punch, but Qianpao just uses Protect again, so Volbeat is free to set up a Tailwind, and Latios takes out Goldengo with a single Thunder. They bring in Urshifu next and Terrasilize it into a pure Water type. Qianpao hits Latios with a Sucker Punch that takes out most of our HP, and we then take out Urshifu with another Thunder. Volbeat then hits Qianpao with a Play Rough, dealing a solid amount of damage and getting the attack drop on it. Qianpao takes out Latios with one more Sucker Punch, and now it's Volbeat's turn to show the world his true power. We go for a Play Rough, and we miss. But that's okay, because on the next turn, we outspeed, and we get another chance to land one, and we miss. Volbeat, you could not have dropped the ball any harder at the end there. Unfortunately, our losing streak doesn't end there, and we quickly add 3 more losses to our name. But we now move on to the 8th battle of the day, where we decide to bring in Volbeat, Latios, Urshifu, and our Caledon, while they start with Charizard and Oranguru. We set up the rain, and Latios can take out Charizard with a Thunder. Oranguru then hits Latios with a Skill Swap, stealing our Levitate ability. For what reason, I'm not entirely sure. Muk is in next, and we set up a Tailwind before hitting it with Thunder, taking out around half of its HP. Oranguru lands a Hyper Voice, and thanks to its Throat Spray, gets a special attack boost, and a knockoff from Muk is enough to take out Latios. We bring in Urshifu next and Terrasilize into a pure Water type, while they Terrasilize Oranguru into a pure Psychic type. But it doesn't matter because the Surging Strikes takes out Oranguru. The second Surging Strikes takes out Muk, and a third just misses the KO on their Sinistra, and our Life Orb takes us out. But Volbeat is able to finish it off with a Play Rough, earning us our 3rd win. We're out of that big loss streak now, so now it's time to start a big win streak. Starting now. For our 10th fight, we're bringing in Volbeat, Latios, Urshifu, and our Caledon, while they start with Malamar and Incineroar. I'm expecting to be hit by a Fake Out, so we swap Latios out for Urshifu, while we have Volbeat use Rain Dance. Instead of Fake Out, Incineroar uses Parting Shot, lowering the attack of Urshifu while swapping out for Hydrapple, and Malamar sets up a Trick Room. We try to hit Malamar with an Encore to force it into undoing the Trick Room, but it doesn't affect it, and it's only now that I remember Prankster moves don't work on Dark types. Urshifu goes down to a Giga Drain, and Malamar skill swaps Contrary onto Hydrapple. We bring in our Caledon, and Hydrapple hits it hard with a Draco Meteor, but we're able to barely survive. Malamar goes for a Hypnosis, but it misses, and our Caledon is able to hit Hydrapple with its own Draco Meteor, nearly taking it out, but then Volbeat, the hero, comes in and finishes it with a Play Rough. Incineroar comes back in and hits Volbeat with a Flare Blitz, but doesn't even take out half of Volbeat's HP. Malamar hits our Caledon with a Foul Play, but it doesn't do much, and it increases our defense, so when we use Body Press, it does more damage, and we just barely miss out on a KO on Incineroar. But this time, Volbeat's Play Rough was directed towards Malamar, so Incineroar is safe. For now. Incineroar then hits our Caledon with a Snarl for the KO, and we find out that Volbeat's Play Rough isn't actually nearly enough to take out Incineroar. But Trick ends this turn, and we bring Latios back in. We use Surf, taking out Incineroar and Volbeat, but Malamar survives and it puts us to sleep with hypnosis. So there's nothing we can do when Scizor comes in and takes out Latios with a bullet punch, giving us yet another loss. Okay, the win streak starts for real this time. Opponent 11 has a very fiery team, so we are bringing in Volbeat, Latios, Gyarados, and Urshifu, and they start with Blaziken and an Ogerpon of their own. The Ogerpon uses... Frick, I bit my tongue. The Ogerpon uses Follow Me, and Volbeat sets up a Tailwind. Latios uses a Luster Purge that was meant for Blaziken, but it hits Ogerpon instead, taking out most of its HP and giving Blaziken the chance to use Swords Dance, doubling its attack, and then its speed boost ability increases its speed. This could be shaping up to be a problem real quick. Blaziken uses Protect, and Volbeat sets up the Rain. Latios' Luster Purge is blocked, and Ogerpon hits Latios with a Throat Chop, taking out most of our HP. We then have Volbeat use Encore on Blaziken, forcing it into only using Protect, and Latios finishes off Ogerpon with a Luster Purge. Torkoal comes in, and its Drought ability changes the weather from rain to sun, but Volbeat can just swap it right back to rain, and a single Luster Purge takes out Torkoal. Charizard is in next, and it terastallizes into a pure Fire type. Luster Purge just barely misses the KO, and it hits Volbeat with a Flamethrower. But Volbeat toughs it out, and Charizard goes down to its own Life Orb. With Protect being the only move Blaziken can use, we swap Latios out for Urshifu, who takes out Blaziken with a Surging Strikes, earning us the win. For the 12th fight, it looks like we're up against a fellow Weather Enjoyer, and we start with Volbeat and Latios against their Palafin and Urshifu. They immediately swap Palafin out for Pelipper, who brings the rain with it, and Volbeat sets us up with a Tailwind. And Latios can then hit Urshifu hard with a Luster Purge for the one-hit KO. They bring our Caledon in next, and we swap Latios out for Gyarados. They terastallize our Caledon into a Fairy type before missing a Draco Meteor, and Pelipper hits Gyarados with a U-turn, swapping out for Palafin, who is switched into a terrifically hideous hero form. Gyarados hits Palafin with a Thunder Wave before being erased from existence by an Electro Shot, and Palafin takes out Volbeat with a Wave Crash. So we bring Urshifu and Latios in, and they swap Palafin out for Pelipper, while we terastallize Latios into a pure Electric type, and we take out our Caledon with a combination of Thunder and Iron Head. Palafin comes back in for the final time, but a Thunder immediately puts it back in its Pokeball, and before we can finish Pelipper, the opposing trainer quits, giving us the win. For the 13th battle, we have what's becoming the usual Volbeat Latios start, and they bring in Mimikyu and Garganacl, the latter of which is immediately terastallized into a normal type. We set up a Tailwind and use Surf, breaking Mimikyu's disguise and getting decent damage off on Garganacl, but Garganacl then uses Explosion, taking out both of my Pokemon and leaving Mimikyu the only survivor, who sets up a Trick Room. This might be it for us. Our Caledon and Ogerpon come in, and their next Pokemon is Palmot. Thinking our Caledon is about to take a close combat to the face, we terastallize into a Grass type. Mimikyu sets up Sword Stance, and Palmot uses Revival Blessing instead of attacking, bringing back the explosive pile of cubes. Flash Cannon takes out Mimikyu, and Ivy Cudgel leaves Palmot in pretty poor shape. Garganacl comes back in, and I'm thinking it's going to use Explosion again. So since our Caledon has a chance at surviving, I should set up an Electro Shot to hit whatever their last Pokemon is once the dust settles. But they use Salt Cure instead, and Palmot hits Ogerpon with a Double Shock, nearly taking us out. We retaliate with an Ivy Cudgel for the KO, and in comes their last Pokemon, Annihilate, who Electroshock definitely wouldn't have taken out. Garganacl finishes off Ogerpon with Assault Cure, and Annihilate takes out Archaludon with the final Gambit, losing us our 8th fight. Okay, the real win streak starts now. We bring in the usual Volbeat and Latios to take on their Serperior and Tornadus. Volbeat sets up the rain, and Serperior outspeeds us and hits Latios with a knockoff, removing its choice specs before Tornadus lands a Bleak Wind Storm, dealing major damage to both of our Pokemon, but we survive, and Latios lands a Thunder on Tornadus, and we just missed the KO. On the following turn, Serperior uses Protect, and Volbeat sets up a Tailwind, so we now outspeed Tornadus, and a Thunder takes it out. Maushold is in next, so we hit Serperior with an Encore, forcing it into spamming Protect while we hit Maushold with an Aura Sphere, but it's just barely not enough for the KO, and Maushold takes out Latios with a Population Bomb. We bring in Ogerpon next, and they swap Serperior out for Goldengo, while Maushold uses Protect, blocking a low sweep from Ogerpon. But Volbeat can then hit Goldengo with a Play Rough, nearly taking it out in one shot since Volbeat is just such a Giga Chad. We try to lock Maushold into using Protect, but it gets swapped out for Serperior, and we terrestrialize Ogerpon before taking out Goldengo with an Ivy Cudgel. Our Tailwind goes down, and Maushold comes back in. So we set the Tailwind back up, and an Ivy Cudgel takes out Maushold, and Serperior goes for a Leaf Storm, and misses. We land an Ivy Cudgel on Serperior, but it's not enough to get the KO, so it gets another chance at Leaf Storm, but it misses again. Sure is rough to miss a potentially game-winning, 90% accurate move twice in a row, huh? The opponent ends up forfeiting, and we can move on to the final fight for the day. It looks like we're up against another rain team, so we'll bring in, surprise, Volbeat and Latios, while the opponent starts with Amoonguss and Pelipper, who sets up the rain for us. Expecting Amoonguss to use Rage Powder, we set up Tailwind and nail it with a Luster Purge for the one-hit KO, and then their Pelipper sets up their own Tailwind. They bring in Archaludon next, so we swap Latios out for Urshifu, and have Volbeat hit Pelipper with an Encore, forcing it into spamming a currently useless move. Archaludon hits Volbeat with an Electro Shot, but the full power of Zeus isn't enough to take our Firefly down. Urshifu can then outspeed Archaludon, and hit it with a close combat for the one-hit KO. And Volbeat can hit Pelipper with a Play Rough, dealing so much damage that it loops back around and leaves Pelipper with 3/4 of its HP. They bring in their final Pokemon, Basculegion, who outspeeds Urshifu and takes it out with a last respects. And at the end of the turn, both teams' Tailwinds go down, and this could not have been better timed for us. We bring in Latios and terrestrialize him into a pure electric type, and thanks to Prankster, we can have Volbeat use Tailwind first, instantly doubling Latios' speed, allowing it to move next and fry Basculegion with a Thunder for the KO. The opposing trainer forfeited moments afterwards, because apparently no one wants us taking out their Pelipper. Thanks to this match, we get bumped up to rank 5, and I think that's a good place to stop for now. More losses than wins isn't great, but I'm sure I'll do better next time. Anyways, I've been Hextasy, thanks for watching.